We are live.
Yay, we're live. Yes,
After a brief technical glitch.
technology has not defeated me just yet, so that's okay.
Not yet.
Yes. Not yet, it's getting there. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our episode 3 of our self-care session with myself and Claire from Pummel and Need. And just a quick recap on our last episode. If you missed it, it was with the fantastic Alika Ashuri, and she is a baking extraordinaire and activist. So it's really worth a watch if you did miss it. It was talking about her father and his wrongful imprisonment, and how as a family they've had to struggle through this for 3 years. So it's a really powerful episode, and if you did miss it, you can catch it on our YouTube channel. So well worth a watch. So that was last episode. But this episode of our self-care series, we will be doing it again in 3 sections. So we'll start off with a little chat to our special guest. Then we will move on to a little massage demo, which will show you some self-massage techniques and some stretches. And then we will finish off with a few questions. If you want to ask a question to ourselves or Marie, you can just pop it in the comments feed, and we will do our best at the end to answer any of those questions. So our special guest this week is the lovely Marie Tay. Now, if you don't know already, Marie is a fantastic yoga teacher. She's got a vast amount of experience with various different spectrum of styles, such as yin, mandala, ashtanga, vinyasa. I think that's how you say it. Sorry, but not sure if that's the right term. Pre and postnatal practices, and she also specializes in qigong and trauma-informed yoga. I personally have never heard of trauma-informed yoga, so it'd be really interesting to find out a little bit more about how that works exactly and how that influences her practice and her teaching techniques. So we'll be talking to Marie all about that in a short while. And that leads us on to her charity of choice. So basically, I don't know if you can see, there's a little onpower.org. That is her charity that she has chosen. And we have a little PayPal link there, which is PayPal Pummel and Need. And Marie this week has chosen the Empowerment Project. So each week we ask our guest to select a charity of their choice, and then any donations that are made by you guys, if you feel able, there's absolutely no obligation at all, will be split 3 ways between ourselves at Pummel and Need and Marie, but also the Empowerment Project. And the Empowerment Project is this fantastic project, and their mission is to bring trauma-informed yoga to refugees across the world, which is incredible, because if you can imagine, these refugees don't have access to well-being such as we do on such a ready basis, So to be able to have access to this well-being project is absolutely fantastic. And they also do a lot of teaching. So they give the empowerment back to the refugees so they can teach yoga to their community, which is incredible. So it's definitely worth having a little look at and just seeing how they help all these refugees across the world. But anyway, we can talk a little bit again about that to Marie in a bit. But before we say hello to Marie, Claire, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Looking out at a rather overcast 15th of July day.
I know.
Slightly depressing.
Every time we stream, it seems to be like...
There's always a storm brewing, isn't there? Yeah. It's a bit ominous. Such drama queens.
Maybe it's like, we're sort of brewing something with our little live stream. Well, since our last episode, so much has changed.
Yeah.
Lockdown seems to have eased quite dramatically. Pubs are opening. We can be a bit more free in terms of who we meet up with and stuff like that. And for us, most significantly, as of this week, we have been told that we can practice again, so we can treat people. how are you feeling about that, Claire? And how will people sort of find coming for a treatment? I'm really sorry. That's my dog. He's with me today, and he's heard someone at the door. So
He's excited about massage.
So he's very excited about massage. So Claire, you just have a little chat about that.
I'll busk while you go and sort Soupy out. Yeah, so I think going back to massage is fantastic. I know hello Soupy. A lot of people were quite confused about the fact that, you could go and stand in a pub without a mask, obviously be close to people. We saw a lot of images on the news of, Soho in London, where people were sort of out in the streets, all thronged together, zero element of social distancing. And it seemed a little bit ludicrous that, given the hygiene and the sanitization levels that are already present in massage pre-lockdown and how stringent they would be afterwards, it seemed a bit daft that we weren't able to get back to it. So I'm happy that we're able to go back. It would have been nice to have a bit more than 2 days notice to prep. And, the guidelines are constantly changing in terms of what the PPE we need to wear is, in terms of how much time you need to leave between treatments. So, obviously the cleaning procedures will be a lot more rigorous than they have been before. So that will have to be taken into account. So I think it'll be a case of when I go back, which will be in a week or so, very much taking it one step at a time. And I suppose with both myself and, the people coming for treatments, we'll have to be a bit kind and patient and understanding that we're all in new territory and we're all just doing our best. So, for me, I would ordinarily do maybe 6 or 7 treatments in a day. So that'll probably be down to 3 or 4, just to allow enough time in between. I can't say I'm dying to wear a mask for a full day, because it is a little bit suffocating, but needs must. And hopefully sooner rather than later we will be back to our kind of old normal rather than the new normal. But that will only happen if we're all careful and stick to the guidelines and do things as safely as possible. At the end of the day, we're in the health and well-being field, so doing anything to compromise people's health or well-being would be totally counterproductive. There's no point in having lovely loose shoulders and then coming down with COVID. So we'll try and avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be ideal. But saying that, because we are in the sort of health and well-being sector, I think we're quite used to sort of sterilization and that's kind of part of our ritual anyway. So hopefully, apart from the mask and maybe the visor, things won't be too different. I haven't started back yet, but I'm planning to again kind of slowly bring back clients and just take my time. But I'm hoping that it won't actually feel too different, because we're kind of used to doing all that kind of cleaning and sterilization and using sort of the couch roll and all that kind of stuff, just to make sure that it's all nice and clean for new clients. So fingers crossed it won't feel too strange. But it's not a quick return. I think that's what I've struggled with, that people think, oh, we can work now, it's fine. But actually, my gym's still shut, various clinics are still shut. It's going to be like a slow process. So we just have to ease back into it. But interesting, positive steps.
Absolutely. We're getting there.
And talking about positive steps, I think it's probably time to bring our special guest in, Marie. So what I will do is I will just bring Marie in. And
hello,
Claire,
Marie. I'll leave.
Oh, hi.
I'll pop you backstage, Claire. That's all right. See you shortly.
Hello.
Hello, Marie. Thank you so much for being part of our live stream. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. This is so lovely.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. So can you just sort of explain briefly how you sort of came across yoga, how and why you decided to actually teach? Because there's one thing sort of going for a yoga class, but actually to become a teacher is quite a big thing, I would imagine. So what was your sort of little journey there?
Yeah, well, in brief, and it is brief because it's quite a long story. No, basically, I mean, I've been working for an actor for many years. I've worked since I was a child, and it's not the most relaxing profession, and it was, here, there, and everywhere. And I think at a certain point, I just was a bit burnt out. I also had vocal nodules, so two things combined that meant I couldn't do any of my outside of acting jobs or my actual profession, which was being an actor. So I was on vocal rest pretty much for quite a lot. It was supposed to be 6 months. I mean, I wasn't very good at it. I like a chit chat. So off the back of that, I was little, I don't know, I was down about it, really. I got quite down. It felt just like I'd lost a sense of myself massively. And I also wanted to try and do everything I could to kind of rehabilitate my voice, really. So for anybody that doesn't know, vocal nodules are like when you've got abrasions on your vocal folds and you can't use your full range of voice. So yeah, with the result from that, I sort of decided to go and do some more yoga. I'd always practiced, and I've been a dancer in the past, and so I wanted to kind of do a little bit more of that, and I had all this time. So I went to my local gym that I was a member of and just did the classes there. And fortunately for me, the teachers that taught there were my amazing teachers that are still my teachers today, and Jamie and Dulcie from the Yoga People, and they just happened to be, they'd not long moved to London, happened to be teaching in a gym, which was my good luck because I met them. And this practice of yoga that I did, it was vinyasa flow and Ashtanga based and rocket as well. It just really spoke to me. It was quite active. It was really dynamic. So it was keeping me fit. It was strengthening my core, which is why I'd gone there in the first place. But I went kind of with a physical intention, really, and also just to give myself a bit of mind space, and ended up with so much more. And it just made me feel human again. It made me feel all kinds of calm that I think I hadn't felt for years. And it brought me back to myself. So that was why I loved it. But one day I had an epiphany in my meditation, which I'd slowed down enough, obviously, to have one. And I just was like, this would just be such a lovely job. And it just seemed to bring loads of things together that I loved. Being physical was always something I'd done, even as an actor. I was a very physical actor. So it brought all those things together. And I initially was thinking, I just want to deepen my practice. I wasn't really wanting to be a teacher, even though I've taught various things previously, to children and to adults, dance, drama, and music. I wanted to just deepen my practice. And that was the best way to do it. And I was allowed to go to, they were training in India. I was like, this is going to be amazing. It's, I'm in this transitional space. It'll be lovely. And so I did, but I actually ended up doing it a year later than I had planned because I became pregnant and with my daughter. So I went the following year, which was just even more perfect because I brought her with me. And it was just this lovely experience for my little family. And it's been the best thing. And it's taken over. Like I wanted a break from acting anyway. I'd been doing it since I was about 8, and it just came at the perfect time. And yoga's just been what I've done ever since. And it's wonderful. It continues to just give me so much more. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You say about it coming to you at a time in your life where you felt quite sort of, I suppose, lost. And I think that's what maybe people who haven't experienced yoga appreciate, that actually it's not just about the physical aspect of it. It's also the mental, and I suppose in some respects the spiritual level that it gives to you, and your general well-being. So it's not, it's not necessarily just doing something to keep fit. It's actually so much more, which it is quite incredible.
That the benefits are so vast, and as a practice, when you get into the deeper side of it, and I'm sort of navigating students through that all the time, it can begin as a physical practice, and it can remain so if that's what you want from it. It doesn't have to, but it will impact, and I will speak about this when we're speaking about the trauma stuff. It will inevitably impact, because you're working with your physical body. It has an impact on your emotional body, your spiritual body, and all the other sides of yourself. And so the benefits are huge, and you start to it doesn't matter from what angle you come to it, all roads lead to Rome. Like, you get there because you found it, and people come from all angles. There's bro yoga in the States where it's all men and they're all like muscly wrestlers. And it really doesn't matter how you find it. And but there are a lot of, like I was saying to Claire before we came on live, there are a lot of misconceptions because it's become such a big business, and people feel actually like they're being kept outside of this yoga box. And actually it should be accessible, and it should be for everyone. And we will speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, a big sort of, I suppose, a big thing for you is bringing yoga to everyone. This idea that anyone in whatever community you come from or whoever you are can come to yoga. So if you were someone, say, who'd never done yoga before, I know before I'd ever done yoga, I was really, really scared to even try it. I think, as you said, because there's this sort of ideal of what a yoga person should be like, or, you know, you need to be particularly bendy or flexible, or because I feel very unflexible still now, but I love yoga and it doesn't impact my yoga practice. It's just part of who I am. So if you're someone that's never done yoga before, how would you advise someone to approach it? Sorry, that's a big
question, and I could be here for hours, which obviously we don't want to be, because we want to cover lots of stuff. But yes, and I get the thing that I hear the most, and most yoga teachers probably hear the most is I'm not flexible enough to do yoga, which is kind of just one of those ridiculous statements when you actually understand what yoga is, because it's to give you, like, coming to the mat or coming to the practice, not necessarily even to the mat, is about giving yourself that, or creating that flexibility and making yourself go from something that isn't whole and isn't perfect and isn't together, and just navigating your way to a better sense of self. So it's better for me as a teacher if someone's coming completely raw, having never done anything, and physically just tight in so many ways, or mentally tight. Just coming to the mat with that is gift for me, because that's exactly what it's about. It's exactly from, you know, bringing you from a sense of not knowing or who you are and what you're doing to a place where you can better understand it. And that is the practice. And so I would say, for somebody that doesn't think they can do yoga or has never done yoga, just sitting down and closing your eyes is a practice. You know, the practice is so much more than just physical practice. And I think that's what I'd really love to kind of tap into today, is just pick away at today, because the business of yoga is a very separate thing to what yoga actually is and has been for many, many years. And the physical practice is, there's 8 limbs of yoga. And that's the sort of theory of yoga. It's based on these 8 limbs. And the physical practice is one part of one of those limbs. So this asana, this practice that the West sort of sees as, like, they think that is just what yoga is, and can be quite it can be quite intimidating, and, you know, it's based on a lot of social media and a lot of commerciality. That's the business of yoga, and that isn't what it truly is. So at its core, there's so much more, and it's much more subtle. And the physical practice is just taking you to a place where you can be with yourself, and you can look inward and really just tap into what's already there. So sitting with yourself and closing your eyes, I'm always saying to my students, if you're on a tube, just closing your eyes and getting your breath low, taking your hands to your tummy and getting your breath low, that's a practice. Living through your daily life and just trying to be in yoga, so you're, you know, trying to work with those other things like ahimsa, self-kindness to all living things. You know, these...
Sorry.
Souping is in yoga right now.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry, carry on, Marie.
Who has joined us for many yoga practices, actually, Lucinda and I. So
he loves yoga, and that is an amazing thing when dogs and animals start doing yoga.
This is another thing, like, you know, children and animals, they're drawn to this. Like, they just know how to do it. They're natural yogis. We're all born natural yogis, you know. We all kind of have an easy access to the deeper stuff, and like, we're kind of just all one with you know, our body and all of these things. So we're trying to get back to that. So whatever way in which you find you can do that, it might be, you know, your yoga might be going for a walk in nature. Your yoga might be chatting to a friend and having a nice meal. And you know, that's my opinion of that. But I think it's about the bigger picture and the bigger sense of this practice, not just, and physical practice, you know, you gradually can edge into that. by just doing some simple movements, and that's what we will speak about with the trauma-informed stuff. It's kind of coming into those more subtle practices.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's when you take away the expectations and you just say there's no expectations, just what I love, because I do practices with Marie, thank you very much, I love it, is that you say just getting to the mat is like, the biggest hurdle, just to get your mind to that mat. And then, there's almost that sense of release, because you're like, oh, okay, I've done it, I'm here. And whatever happens next, it doesn't matter. It's just for yourself, and just taking away those expectations to, that you have to be like this supersonic, like legs behind your ears kind of person. It just makes a huge difference for me. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And maybe that's, as you said, it's that commercialized aspect of yoga that's maybe taken over a bit with all these sort of.
I mean, I've struggled for many years, sorry to like cut above you, but like I really, really have struggled with this myself, because I felt an antithesis to what that was. And of course, it's a good thing that yoga is well known, and it's become, in a way, that it's become big business, because there are loads of places you can practice now. There are loads of people, different teachers, different styles. There are great benefits to it becoming big business, but there are great disadvantages too. And I feel like that really jarred with me, and has done from the very start, because it never was about that for me. But I still have to be part of that world. And I feel like it saddens me when I see people that most need the practice not being able to get to the practice. Like I've had listened to loads of conversations about this recently, where we're starting to unpack people feeling excluded, basically, people of color feeling excluded from studios, feeling excluded from the representation of yoga on social media. This kind of like cultural appropriation of yoga. It is an Indian, it's from India, and yet the majority of people that we see teaching are white, and and it's difficult for people of color to navigate their way through the business of yoga. That is fact, and it's hard. Studios aren't always that supportive. So this has become a big conversation, and we're starting to unpack this. And some studios have been really amazing and supportive, and others haven't been quite there yet. And there are a lot of voices, hopefully, that are starting to become heard from communities that so this is a big thing. But also just the fact that people that need this practice, it's a lot of money to go to a yoga class in London and anywhere. And I really hate that, because the first classes I did, I was like, let's just do it for free. These Zoom classes I'm doing them as donation, and we give some money to charity, because I really want people to just be able to get there. And it's still not that accessible even then.
Yeah, no, I think that
we have those cages that we can't get into it.
We often forget that a lot of people don't have the same advantages and access to certain well-being tools that we have, and that kind of leads us on to this trauma-informed yoga, Marie. I'd never even heard of it at all until obviously I was reading about what what it influences your practice. So can you just sort of explain what it is and how it works?
Well, basically, I'll say a little bit about how I came to find that really resonated with me. I feel like there were a few things that jarred with me, like I've been saying, all the way along my trainings, and where I felt like I was slightly against the grain, or was one of a small group of people that wanted to practice yoga for a different end. I didn't want to be a famous yogi, and I didn't want notoriety, and I didn't want to do social media. I just wanted to bring it to my community, my very small community at the time, and I had to keep it small because of my own personal, I had kids and all the rest of it. But I wanted to really bring it into those spaces where it ordinarily wasn't. There was everybody else was doing the big studio stuff, and there was loads of that, and they didn't need me doing that. And so I found that really hard, because I didn't know where to go to or how to do it. And so gradually, over the course of being a teacher, I've been more and more drawn to this. And it was when I actually started, I was really drawn to training, being trained to teach people in prisons. And I've been really drawn to that since I basically became a teacher myself, because that felt like the most difficult space for people to be, and the most difficult people perhaps to teach, and the place in which trauma just is. And so when I did a few courses on this, I felt like I opened Pandora's box of this whole yoga therapy side of yoga that I loved and I'm so excited about and resonated really with me. But I mean, I am by no means an expert on this. I'm still learning, and it's still this is the newest part of my learning as a teacher. So what I'm saying is I'm not an authority, but I've done a lot of reading on it, and I do teach. I've taught in certain spaces with people, and I've done a lot of training on it, and I'm yet to take that further. And on Empowerment, they do that, which is why I've nominated them for this. But the actual practice of trauma-informed yoga, it's not new, but it's kind of, what I was saying to Claire is a lovely thing about it is that it's bringing, science and yoga don't really always come together. And it's unfortunate. And people have realized over the past 25 years that it's a shame, because the benefits of yoga are great, particularly for people who have suffered trauma. So bringing those things together and realizing that there are physiological benefits and basing it in the body allows people access. Those people that don't have access can have access to this practice when we start to understand and unpack what trauma basically is. So to be brief, and I'm trying to be brief, but it's difficult because it's a big, but
very interesting.
The whole essence of what trauma is an impact. We're basically born open-hearted as people, as humans, and some sort of suffering happens to us, and it's an impact, and we feel that physically, and our body takes that on physically through the fascia network, which is what we work a lot with in yin, and of course in massage as well, your myofascial release. So the body literally takes it on as physical impact, and it can be more than that. Victims of trauma, trauma can range from trauma in childhood, trauma from an awful experience in adulthood, or there's compound trauma, and there's generational trauma. There's just so many different types of trauma, and it never used to be given this word. It used to be we can't quite pinpoint what suffering is, but now it's called trauma. So now that we know that, and we know that it affects the body and makes you maybe distrust your body, because these triggers, you've had this experience that you can't really articulate, but when you get into your body, suddenly there's these triggers, they pop up, and this stuff starts to come out, and you can feel unsafe in your own body. You can become a prisoner in your own body. You can have panic attacks, and just a whole range of physiological things that can happen related to trauma. And so claiming that body back is kind of what the root of trauma-informed yoga is, really, to kind of navigate safe ways to start to get to know yourself again, because often a result of trauma is that the body disconnects, the person, the consciousness disconnects from the body. So we're not at one with what's going on here. So trying to just find a way home to yourself is basically what we're all trying to do with yoga, but there's ways in which trauma-sensitive yoga has to happen. It has to be a safe environment. It has to be very, very subtle practice. We don't want to use words, especially in a prison scenario, or people that aren't accustomed to yoga, which is most of these individuals. We don't want to use language that's inaccessible. So, Sanskrit goes out the window, and certain poses go out the window because they can be triggers for being, they're quite exposing a lot of these poses, and you never come up behind somebody. So as a yoga teacher, there's a lot to kind of change about how you would teach and how you would plan a practice. And so,
it's about sort of being sensitive, I suppose, to the scenario that you're in, and adapting, and it sounds,
and knowing those triggers really as well, knowing those triggers and knowing what you can do to respond to that. So you don't want to panic yourself in a room full of people when one person's feeling triggered. There's ways in which, as a teacher, you can help them navigate that or avoid it happening altogether, really. And just making it a much smaller and a much simpler practice is really kind of, this is me simplifying it, but really kind of way to to make it trauma sensitive, trauma informed. Really.
And it used to, I mean, obviously at the moment, lockdown is kind of
trauma for everyone.
you can't obviously go into prisons, I presume, and do this kind of stuff.
No.
But is this something you plan to kind of really focus on in the future? Is this something
this is sort of where I've just been navigating myself quite slowly. I mean, there are teachers that do this already, and they're amazing. There are people that I've worked with and teachers of mine that are just doing amazing work in all of these fields on power, but also the Prison Yoga Trust and lots of amazing people that I've worked with and trained with, who are already doing this work. And it's you know, I feel in awe of them, and I can't sit here saying I'm an expert on it by any manner of means. There are wonderful books about trauma-informed yoga, but I have an interest in it, and I want to increase that interest. And I've worked with people that have suffered domestic violence in groups of women, and I suppose at the moment I balance my work as a yoga teacher that, you know, that I earn a living from and have to earn a living from and support myself and my family, with my karma yoga, where I can do some of these little things for free, and I go into different spaces and work with people that have suffered trauma, and I want to increase the amount that I do that, but obviously in great balance, in my own self-care, have to make sure that it's all
cool.
But I want to do more training, and I'm looking to personally do more training in yoga therapy, because that just really, and it's the people that are drawn to you. The clients I've had, particularly my one-to-ones, often are people that have suffered trauma or do suffer anxiety, depression, and mental health things, which aren't uncommon to all of us. You know, I mean, that's why yoga is so vital in society at the moment, where there's this gap. You know, we used to have deep spiritual connections in this country and in other countries where, you know, there was things that we could do and structures that we could rely on. And I'm not saying that's, you know, something that people should be doing. It's just something that isn't happening. And there's a gap for us to have a space to connect with ourselves, to connect with others, and to just have that time for self-care.
Yeah. So, no, it's so important. And how have you been? I mean, how have you been carrying on during lockdown then? How has lockdown impacted your yoga teaching and yourself?
Interesting. Yes, well, tenfold. But yeah, like for everybody, it's a really strange thing to find yourself in a bubble. I'm in a bubble with I mean, I live with my parents and my husband and my children and my dog. So we're a big, you know, we have a lot of us in this space, and that in itself is a challenge, but also I'm hugely grateful for having that space that isn't, I'm not on my own, and good and bad. And then the children, I've been homeschooling them, which has been really lovely, actually. It's had its challenges, don't get me wrong, but it has been really lovely to just reconnect with myself. I mean, I've had loads of time for practice and bring that practice to my family, which is not always available to me. I mean, this Zoom yoga has been amazing. I didn't think I'd get on with it at all. I avoid technology at all costs and don't feel like I need it. I don't feel like that's what yoga's about for me. And I will say that, like, it's not just an avoidance because I'm scared of it. I generally kind of don't like that side of yoga, and I had to keep myself separate from it. There are great benefits because obviously it reaches a larger audience, but I haven't been able to navigate that well, and I don't want to spend my time doing that when I have limited time anyway. I want to just be out doing my thing and teaching and doing my own practices. So so coming to it was a bit, I was tense, and I was supposed to be in India when lockdown happened, so that very much impacted me. I was supposed to be there doing a training and completing my advanced training, so that impacted me, and it was fine. It was fine. Rolling with the punches is what yoga's all about. And doing the Zoom stuff was wonderful because I'm so astounded that we can still have this connection through a screen. I can still see what people are doing. I can see massive progressions. I think because people are in this safe space of their own home, and there's this other lovely side that's allowed to come out and flourish because of that. And I'm really loving it. I don't really want to go back, but yeah.
Do you think it will? Because I do obviously the Zoom practice with you, and I'm really enjoying it, I have to say. Partly because I just feel I am more myself when I am practicing, because I'm not sort of aware of what other people are doing in the room. I'm very much kind of just in my own space, and I'm with you. I feel like I'm sort of having a one-to-one with you. Do you think this kind of lockdown will actually influence how yoga is taught going forward? Do you feel like there might be something that, do you feel like this Zoom thing will carry on, or do you think it will always go back?
I actually hope so. I, on a personal level, really hope so, because I really enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the effects of, like you say, people feeling that comfortable and not having those distractions, really. There are other distractions, obviously, like pets are in around our space all the time in my classes, and I love it. We've got our whole other class going on with the pets and licking the camera and everything. But no, I really do hope, and I think all studios, or most studios, do seem to want to keep those things in tandem, because they've realized the great benefits. I mean, I've had people globally practicing with me, people, ex-students or people that have never been able to do my classes are able to do them, you know, because as long as we work out the time difference. And that's amazing. And my best friends who live in Scotland have been able to do yoga with me. And that's just such a gift. And I love that. And it's lovely to teach my people. And obviously for it to be more accessible in terms of financially more accessible. That's the biggest thing for me that I really want to maintain. Hopefully we can, because people can come to my class for free. And I've thrown it out to all of my different networks of people. You know, and everyone's got a smartphone, you know, everyone really does, and or has access in some way. And you know, there haven't been that, I just have not had that much footfall from people in spaces where I work that, you know, that don't really know yoga, and it's a challenge. Getting people to the mat is the challenge, really, across the board for all studios, for myself as well. But
well, I've just put your little email. Is that the best way? If someone is listening to this and they think, I really want to do a Zoom with Marie, is that the best way to?
More than welcome. Just contact me on that, and everyone is welcome to my classes. And you know, the more the merrier. It doesn't change what I'm doing, and I will. And you know, I've got lots of different classes for different bodies. Like, it doesn't have to be. I've got pregnant ladies. I've got older people. I've got across the board, and that's what's really changed, and I hope will be maintained going forward. You know, because every single person almost that's come to these Zoom classes is like, I didn't think I could do yoga, or I didn't think yoga was for me. You know, that's like, and then I've got my regulars who are yogis, and the combination of those, that's what I've always wanted. This is like my dreams coming true. I never would have imagined it would have happened over Zoom yoga, but here we are, and I'm going to maintain it certainly for the foreseeable and ongoing, even if I go back into studios, which is sort of starting to ramp up now. I want to do them in tandem. It's just, and I'm going to hopefully expand and extend what I can offer, hopefully, as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it, because I love it. So, and I was thinking, actually, as we were talking, if there are people that are a bit scared, as we've said, of sort of trying yoga for the first time, actually a Zoom yoga class would be perfect, because you're on your own. You know, there's no one there. You don't have to feel silly.
You have to have the camera on. You're in your safe space. I'm like, literally, for my yin classes, I'm like, the Sunday morning one, I'm like, hungover, whatever, in your pajamas, whatever, bring it to the mat. Put the camera off. I'm not looking, and nobody else is, because they're like lying around, rolling around a mat. So literally, and it's so, I can work with what you've got. So just in that email, just let me know what stuff you've got going on, and we can work through it together. And it will benefit. You never feel worse after a yoga class. You only feel better in some way. So you don't have to go deep. You just have to show up for yourself. That's really it, really.
So we're slightly at the old time, but just finally, just can you explain a little bit more about the charity that you've chosen, the Empowerment project, and how you sort of came across it, etc.?
I came across Empower Yoga from two sources, actually. One of the studios I work in supports them and works with them, and from one of my trauma informed. So when I was working with the Phoenix Prison Trust, doing a training to work in prisons, and there was a girl there that has worked with them, and when I was speaking about what I do and what I'm interested in, she's like, how are you not working with them? So So there's, I mean, and obviously lockdowns happened since then. So I just love what they're about. It just speaks to my soul, really. And you've explained so perfectly what they do. It's global. They give the tools back. So they train refugees and people that have suffered trauma to teach yoga. So they don't have to rely on yoga teachers. They give these tools back to the community, back to whatever community they're working with. And, you know, then it spreads the love, really, basically. And that's, and, you know, and it's bringing yoga back to what it's about. You know, we learn it so that we can gift it back. That's pretty much, it's a circular thing. That is yin and yang. And so that's what we're wanting to aim to bring everything to circle.
It's an incredible mission. And again, these are things that I've never heard of. And to think that people that have gone through so much suffering can get these tools to feel like they've got a bit of empowerment back in their lives and also well-being for themselves. It's just an incredible charity. So please, if anyone does feel like they've got a couple of pennies, you can just donate on the
every little helps. And they do such amazing work. Please check them out. They do fantastic work in this field, and just letting people, you know, those body responses that you can't control after a traumatic experience, it can impact everything and it impacts everyone around them. So being able to unpack that and come back to a place of just being in this world, like, you know, it's for all of us. It's not just for, you know, those people separate to yourselves. This is the same with the prisoner thing that I speak about, and, you know, getting those people rehabilitated to be better humans in the world, it affects us. We're all not just we're all one, you know, and it's, if one person is not free, I mean, I think it's Audre Lorde, and I love quoting her, but like, if somebody else is not free, then we can't be free. So, you know, we have to look after ourselves so that we can look after others, and, you know, give the practice back.
Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much, Marie. That was amazing. Really, really good chat. I know we could go on forever, but I'm aware that people are probably
let's get their break,
so I'm going to have to move on. But thank you so much for such an insightful talk about yoga, and hopefully that's inspired a few people to check out Marie, check out her Zoom classes. I do them religiously every week. I do them once a week. I do the Vinyasa flow. Is that the one I do?
That's the one you do. Doesn't have to be with me. Just sit yourself down one day and breathe, you know.
Marie is amazing, honestly. You should check her out. She's incredible. I did not like yoga before I did it with Marie. I was scared of it. I have to admit, freely, honestly, I was scared of it. So Marie has transformed my love of yoga. But we're now going to move on to some wrist and forearm massage self-care, because if people are used to the yoga practice, you might understand that you can get a lot of pressure on the wrist. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to bring Claire in, who's going to lead that, and I'm going to put you backstage, but Marie. But if there's any questions for Marie, she will pop back at the end. So please, if you have any questions in terms of yoga, anything that we've talked about, just pop it in the feed, and we'll try and answer that at the end. So thanks so much, Marie. We'll see you in a bit.
See you soon.
Bring Claire back on.
Hello.
Hello. Right. Wonderful.
Hello.
And I will mute myself, and I will hand you over to. Oh.
She's muted. So that was fantastic. Thank you very much, Marie, for that. Similar to what Marie said about making yoga accessible and something that you can do no matter where you are, no matter what you're wearing, we want to do the same with massage. So today, like Lucinda said, we're going to look at a bit of self-care for the wrists. You don't need any equipment. You don't need to be anywhere special. You don't need any oil. This is just a really simple set of techniques you can do to loosen out the wrists. So as always, we'll just start with a couple of nice deep breaths to relax, get ourselves in the zone. This is your few minutes just for you for a bit of self-care. So take the time to breathe, relax, and enjoy. So we'll start with a nice deep inhalation right down into the diaphragm, and with an exhalation, just let go of any tension you might have carried into the session today. And try to keep the nice, slow, deep breathing going throughout the stretches and the massage techniques. So the first stretch we're going to look at is one that we call Angry Baby. So what you're going to do is, if you just follow Lucinda, take one of your hands and bunch it up into a tiny, tight little fist. So really like an angry baby, very hungry, very frustrated, teething, whatever. And hold this for a few seconds. Take a nice deep breath in. And on the exhalation, release the fist and stretch your fingers out as wide as possible, almost into like a star shape. And again, hold this for a few seconds. Give it a good shake. Let it all go. Turn to jelly. And we'll do the same thing again. So take your hand into a nice tight fist. And stretch out into a star shape. Really think about stretching your fingers, almost stretching the fingers away from the hand. So you're really pulling through the joints. And release. Give it a good shake. And relax. And you can do this 2 or 3 times. It's a really good way to get the circulation going in the hands if you've been sat over your computer, practicing piano, doing shopping, doing yoga, whatever it is you might have been doing. It's a really nice way to get the circulation going right down through the hands and into the wrists. So we're now going to do a wrist extension and flexion stretch. So again, take one arm straight out in front of you and point your fingers up towards the ceiling. And then with your free hand, if it suits you, you can pull the fingers back towards you so you get a nice stretch down through the forearm, and hold this for a few seconds, taking a few nice deep breaths. And on your exhalation, just let the hand flop down, let the fingers point towards the floor. And then again, use the free hand to add a bit of pressure. So you're pulling the hand back towards you. So you're getting a nice stretch down the front of the forearm. And release. And then just rotate that wrist clockwise and then anti-clockwise a couple of times. And then we'll repeat this on the other side. So again, take your hand out. And, Lucinda's doing some nice robot arms. Bring the hand up towards the ceiling. So you bring the fingers right up and then use the free hand to pull them back towards you. Take a nice deep breath in as you do so. Try and keep your shoulders relaxed, your jaw relaxed. And on your exhalation, let the hand flop down to the floor. And then the same thing. Pull the fingers back towards you. And breathe in, and on the exhalation, release. And again, a couple of rotations clockwise and anti-clockwise to keep that joint nice and mobilized. Okay, so again, with these, you can do them 2 or 3 times. If you'd like to do it for a bit longer, we do have a full video that focuses on the hands and the wrists, so you can check that out on our YouTube channel. And we'll now move on to the massage section. So just start by taking one hand, and with the opposite hand, squeeze the wrist to warm up the whole area. So you're working from the wrist all the way up to the elbow crease. And you can be as vigorous or as gentle as you like. Just listen to your body and do what feels good for you. But you want to feel it. You want to try and get the circulation going. So you work up both sides. You're going up the front of the forearm and also working through the sort of the belly of the forearm as well. Now, take your hand and rest it on your thigh, and then use the opposite hand, take the thumb, and you're making small circular movements across the crease of the wrist. And you want to avoid the 2 kind of tendons that run down the wrist. You just want to work into the soft tissue of the wrist. And do that a couple of times. And then with the same thumb, work slowly up the forearm with a pressing motion along the inside of the arm. And you work all the way from the wrist to the elbow crease. And then you're working down from the elbow crease to the wrist again. So you're just trying to access the soft tissue on the belly of the forearm here. And you now turn your arm over, rest your palm on your thigh, and then use your knuckles of the opposite hand to create a rolling motion from side to side over the forearm. So you're kind of doing this sort of movement, as if you were working through Play-Doh. And you're again working all the way up the forearm from the wrist to the elbow. If you find any areas that are particularly tight or tense, you can take one of the knuckles and dig into it a little bit, not to the point of pain, because that will just create tension, but to the point where you're feeling it and where you're working through any problematic muscle fibers. So this is really good if you suffer with tendonitis or strain. You're working through all of this area and getting things loosened up. Lovely. And then just take a nice deep breath in and shake that hand out. Make sure that your shoulders are still relaxed and your jaw is still relaxed and you're still breathing deeply. Okay, and we will work onto the other side now. So again, you're just taking the opposite hand and you're squeezing the wrist, and then you're working all the way up the arm to get the circulation going through the muscles there. So it's almost sort of like a pulling motion. So you're using the hands on the front and the thumb on the back to pull the flesh away from the bone. Not a very nice image, but that's essentially what you're trying to do. And then once you've done that, just rest the back of your hand on your thigh. And then use the opposite hand, taking the thumb, to make those small kind of circular movements across the wrist crease, avoiding the tendons. And doing that a couple of times, almost like a little caterpillar. And then you're doing the same thing. You're taking the thumb and you're working all the way from the wrist up the inside of the forearm towards the crease of the elbow. And as I said with the front of the forearm, likewise with this area, if you find an area that's particularly tight, you can just pause there, press down for a few seconds and see if you can get a bit of release. So you're working all the way up the Oh, I think I disappeared there for a second. Oops. Once you've done that, turn your arm over and rest your palm on your thigh. And then with the knuckles of the opposite hand, take a rolling motion from side to side across the forearm, working from the wrist all the way up to the elbow. And it's quite normal to see a little bit of redness. This is erythema, and this is where you're just creating a little bit of or you're prompting a little bit of extra blood circulation in areas that might not usually have it. So what you don't want is to get to the point where you're bruising yourself, but a little bit of redness is normal and usually disappears within 24 hours. And then once you've worked through all those muscle fibers along the front of the arm, again, just take a few nice deep breaths. And shake the arm out. Just go really floppy, like jelly. And you are done. So we'll just finish with a nice deep breath in and out, just to ground ourselves a bit. And that is your brief, short and sweet technique to work through the wrists and the forearms.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claire. That was great.
No problem.
And as Claire mentioned, we do have some videos on our working from home series on YouTube. So if you are struggling with any area of the body in particular, you can check out those videos. We do look at all all the body parts, so to speak. So check that out. And also there's some nice techniques using a tennis ball and things like that for the wrists and forearm as well. So there's some useful little hints and tips there. But that is great. So now we're just going to bring Marie back and see how she found all of that. Hello, Marie.
Hey, Marie.
Thank you.
Did you find anything that was particularly
difficult to understand? I feel like that's so helpful. I've had issues with wrists before, more to do with having kids when I was postnatal. I had really bad wrist issue, and it does play up. It niggles with me when I'm practicing yoga. So that's amazing, because it's just having these tools yourself is just kind of what it's all about, isn't it? Having those abilities to help yourself feel better and functional. And I didn't feel like any of it, like it was really self-explanatory. Yeah, it was really easy to follow. So I need to check out the other ones. I haven't yet.
Well, they're all short and sweet. So I think, it's kind of something that you can dip into whenever you feel like it. They're all divided up into different body parts. So, we all, when you've done leg day at the gym or you've gone for an impromptu run and not had time to stretch, always guilty of that.
Like utilizing, I know as a parent particularly, but just for all of us living busy lives, utilizing those little pockets of time are so key. That's what I think with self-care really makes the difference, is finding those little moments. You don't always have time for like an hour and a half practice. I used to traumatize myself by saying I have to do the full thing. It's like, no, it's just not possible. Real yoga is being like 5 minutes here and there, little
waiting for the dishwasher to finish or whatever. Just going through your wrist.
I love my wrists, honestly.
Marie, we actually had a question from Kate, who is wondering, and I know that this is something I definitely struggle with, and I think this would really play into the wrist arm strength thing as well. Kate's wondering how you build up the strength to get to a headstand. And I think for a lot of people who practice yoga, you see that one person in the room who can do it and you're like, how? Why?
I think it puts people off. They're like, oh, it's terrifying.
It looks so hard. Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who's a bit daunted by that?
Headstands. So headstands often, the big thing is that you put too much weight on the head, and it's a lot of this is really perfect actually, because there's a lot of playing with the wrist. You kind of have to use, when I'm doing like a little breaking down 1-to-1 or something with this, I'm always making sure people are just navigating their balance through the whole of the forearm, really, because you are using those arms to kind of just keep your balance. They're working as feet, and feet, spread out, they root down, and you use the whole part of your foot. So that's essentially what you're doing with your arm. And a lot of times I notice people are kind of just on their head, and it's really bad for your neck, obviously. Those arms and not using this strength. And the whole yoga practice builds up the strength in your body. So if you've got a regular practice, the exercises and the asana you'll be doing will be building your strength, because headstand happens at the end. So you're working towards it, and the practice, especially in an Ashtanga practice, is progressive. It's getting you towards being able to do that. So if you're struggling with things like chaturangas and that sort of upper body strength, keep working on that, because that will get you there. My voice says practice and all is coming, and it's really, really true. Just keep working on. That's why we drill those things. They're boring, and sometimes we just want to skip to the fun stuff, but it's not about the fun stuff. It's about the drilling and the creating the strength and creating that inner space of feeling like balanced. Suddenly that's going to help you with the headstands as well. So kind of it's the fuller picture rather than just drilling headstands, because you're not going to get there if that's what you do work.
Because that's the cool pose, isn't it?
And things like pincha as well. Like that's when I get students who are like, I just want a pincha. It's like, well, let's go and do some yin. And that's really hard, and they reject me for that. But that's what we need to look at, and that's the hard work. You're not going to get there, by doing nothing. And the hard work is like practice, regular practice.
Yeah.
It will come. And
like anything in life, patience.
And it's so hard to repeat that, and like you don't believe it until you get there. And I know like there's been moments in my life where I've not been able to practice. Like when I was pregnant, I was so debilitatingly unwell, and I wasn't able to move, never mind practice. And for me as a yogi, that was just really, really hard. I was like, afterwards, I was stronger for it. Weirdly, I could do pinches in a way that I'd never been able to do them before. And it was because I'd been working this mental practice of yoga. I'd been sitting there dealing with myself and like just really having a really hard time, actually trying to work on those more subtle breathing things, and all of that really helped my physical practice without doing anything. I thought I would be physically just in a right mess, and actually the opposite was true. And I floated up into these poses I'd been hammering myself to try and perfect before then, and so it really, until you experience that and you can see that, it's hard to believe it, but I'm telling you, it works.
Practice and have a baby.
Practice all the stuff, like just keep just dealing with your day to day in a yogic way is going to help your physical practice and vice versa. So
amazing.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you, Marie. We've had some really nice comments as well. Loving this. Hungover yoga, been there. So, yeah, we've all been there. So really, really love your feedback. So thank you so much for being with us today. And as we've said, check out the amazing, sorry, I'm just popping the little banner on. Have I done that right?
Power?
Yeah.
There we go.
Is it on? Oh, perfect. So that's the charity that Marie has talked about, and you can donate through our PayPal link, which I'm just putting up there.
It's disappeared.
I hope it makes people more aware of yoga being, it's not just about these commercialized side of it and this stuff that you can buy. It's a whole other thing, and it's accessible for all. I just really hope that that's kind of something that people can take away today.
You don't need lycra.
What we did see in a poster, or just remind ourselves of that. But sometimes we forget.
And if you have missed any of today, anyone, guys, you can check it out. It will be posted on our YouTube and social media channels, so you can watch back any bits you've missed.
Please share.
Please share. Please join Marie's amazing Zoom.
I've done them outside. They're amazing.
Claire's one of the only outside practitioners, and it's such a lovely thing to see, being on the class, rolling around.
So nice.
And yeah. I think that's about it for today. Thank you so much. And thank you, Marie. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And thank you so much to anyone who's donated. It really means a lot to us. We really, really appreciate it. And we will sign off there, and we will see you soon for another live stream. Take care. Bye.